Good morning, brand DIYers. It is Mark here on a sunny Tuesday morning, and I have part two of my Mark Di Somma Love Fest. I found another story. This guy has got tons of great stuff for marketers and brand builders, and I want to share and say, check out Mark Di Somma. He has got some really good stuff. Today, I was inspired by a story that he wrote 6 years ago about how you know if your brand is losing focus. And there's a big problem for all of us. I can recall from personal experience, having worked on a lot of big brands, um, that brands would go through a regular sort of churn of trying to be something that they're not, moving into new areas, trying this, dabbling in that, trying a whole bunch of stuff. And essentially, it came down to yes, brands always did want to improve, and there's a really strong case for that. But it also came down to boredom, or people changing jobs. Every 18 months, there would be perhaps a new brand director or marketing director on the account, and they want to put their personal imprint on the business. So they said, well, we're going to change up the brand. We're going to do some new and interesting stuff. I also saw a lot of brands lose their way when times got tough. I'm old enough to have lived through a bunch of economic downturns, the COVID one just being the latest of many. And I've also lived to see trends like smoking go away. And how did brands respond to that? They responded both in good and bad ways. So it's a fascinating topic. And when I lucked into this story by Mark Di Somma, I said, I've got to do a show on that. So his story is 7 ways that you can tell if your brand is losing focus. Now, let's start at the top. First one, you are diversifying to try to bring in revenue. And this is interesting. I talk about Rubbermaid all the time because I was shocked and horrified when I went to work at Rubbermaid as a consultant, and they showed me around their floor of brands. And the first thing I saw was a fountain pen. Now, Rubbermaid is a company that makes janitor products and rubber buckets and trash cans and stuff like that. That's Rubbermaid, right? Well, they also went on a buying spree in the 1980s and bought up all these companies that had absolutely nothing to do with their core business. Now, what does that do? That takes a lot of that takes a lot of effort, that takes a lot of expertise in a direction that you're not really good at. And one thing that Somma brought up, which is a fundamental of marketing, is take a look at market adjacency, not market diversity. Market diversity is like what Rubbermaid did. They're in the rubber can business, but they diversified into fountain pens and a whole bunch of other stuff that had nothing to do with their core business. Very time wasting, distracting, and not productive. Market adjacency is what Apple does. They said, we're really good at using digital networking, pulling people together, creating great environments for them. We'll create a great environment for computing, and then we'll create a great environment for music, and then we'll create a great environment for audiovisual and phones, etc., etc., etc. Each of them has that core attribute of what makes Apple great in the first place. So every time you bring out a new brand, what you're doing is you're actually making gravy for the master brand, Apple. So you bring out an iMac, and that then makes gravy. And then you bring out an iPhone, that makes gravy. You bring out an iPad, that makes gravy. You bring out Apple TV, iTunes, all that stuff. It just makes gravy for the master brand, helps you stay focused. All right, enough on that one. Your products are out of date. This is something that is a very prevalent problem. When you look at a fast food restaurant, you go, they haven't changed up their menu in years. And sometimes that's a good thing because people get used to what they love and they don't want to change up. However, if you're launching technology or a line of clothes, you probably want to keep an eye on what the trends are. Now, this is hard work. You've just spent a ton of time building your brand in the first place. And now I'm here telling you that you have to go back to the drawing board again and again and again. You just want to sit down in your easy boy and just take a nap because it's really hard, but you can't. That's the price of entry if you want to build a brand. Your market share, number 3, your market share or your margins are slipping. And here Di Somma brought up a really good point. Pay attention to your margins, not to your revenue. Pay attention to how much money you're making for how much money you're spending, not just how much money you're earning. Because it is very easy to make a lot of money by discounting and price slashing, and that leads you straight to the rubbish bin. That leads you straight into the garbage can. That is a terrible strategy to take. However, if you have a product that has a good brand, it means you can charge more money for it. More money than your competitors can for virtually the same product. If your margins are slipping, that is a sign that your brand is not well, that your brand isn't worth paying for. Number 4, you've got lots of different messages in the market. And again, this takes us back to board brand managers, board marketing directors at companies that I worked for. They come in, they say, oh, we want to try this, we want to try that. Now, another way that you get a lot of different messages in the market, I remember working in quick serve restaurants, fast food, and you would have a constant tension between the franchisees and the home office. The home office said, we want to create a brand message. The franchisee said, we want to create cheaper burger message. Cheaper burger, brand, cheaper burger, brand. These guys did what they wanted. These guys did what they wanted. It was a mess. You put lots of different messages in the market, potentially even not even logoing them the same, making them look the same. You are going to create an unholy mess, create lots of confusion. Your brand is going to lose focus and it's going to lose value. Your investors are holding you hostage. Number 5 rather, your investors are holding you hostage. Now, this isn't something that a lot of companies that are DIYing, just coming out of the garage, smallish companies have to deal with. However, if you're a tech company and you are going for investment, angel investment even, I've talked to lots of investors who have started up their own investing companies because they got so sick of the way that investors were beating up companies and they wanted to do it different. What happens is a tech entrepreneur goes into the market, says, I'm going to get some funding from investors, and then they get that funding, be careful what you wish for, and right away the investors start to beat the crap out of the founder. The founder's job becomes dealing with investors 24/7. That means they take their eye off the brand ball. That means their products aren't up to snuff. That means their messaging probably isn't up to snuff. So investors want a return on investment and they want it right freaking now. And that can be the worst thing possible for a brand. However, there is a solution. You have to be able to define your brand as an asset. That is something that is worth money. And if you put money into your brand and you do it properly, it is going to be worth this much in the future. And it's a slow burn. You're not going to get a quarterly return on that brand. However, you need to be able to define for your investors why a brand is an asset, what the brand is worth right now, what you're doing to make it worth more money, and how that's going to make the company money. If you need help with that, I can help with that. Number 6, you're always holding promotions or sales. No, this goes back to watch your margins. Pay attention to having big margins, not little margins. If you're always holding promotions or sales, what happens? Nobody's going to pay retail. Everybody wants price reductions. They're going to get used to buying you cheap, and they're going to look at you as a cheap brand. And then you're going to get more scattergunned. You're going to try more things, lose focus. Number 7, final way that you know that your brand is losing focus. You are overcommitted to one course of action. Now, this is interesting because remember we talked about the big problem being that brands get bored and they start looking all over the place. Well, what happens if your brand has opportunities in a whole bunch of different areas that are market adjacent? Remember we talked about Apple and market adjacency, to take what's core and good to your brand and apply it to new places. That's what Apple does. What if you see the opportunity to take your core IP, the thing that makes your brand great, and apply it to different places, and you don't do it? What happens if you don't do it? You know what happens? You start to go, I am applying myself 110% to this one area. That becomes applying to one tactic, as opposed to saying we have to have multiple tactics in the market to maximize our brand. If you do it like Apple, market adjacency, you can have a variety of products, a variety of things that you're nurturing in the market, and each one builds the brand of the other. By focusing just on one, what it does, it makes your brand go stale, and people on the outside look at it and go, they're kind of an irrelevant brand. They're not really good at very many things. They're only doing this, even though their competitors are doing a whole bunch of other stuff. Therefore, they've kind of lost focus on what made them great in the first place. So there you go. Seven ways to know that your brand is losing focus. 1, you're diversifying to try to bring in revenue. That is, you're trying, it looks desperate, you're trying everything. Your products are out of date. You're tired and you say, I don't want to update my product. Well, you gotta. Your market share and your margins are slipping. You have to pay attention to how much you can charge for each unit, not how much money you're making sum total, but how much you're making per each sale, so that you can drive up the price of each unit because your brand is focused and strong. Number 4, you got lots of different messages in the market. Remember, I told you about McDonald's. You got the franchisees versus the home office. They all want their different messages. They don't logo them the same. They don't have the same colors. It's an unholy mess. The brand looks confused. You're always holding promotions or sales. The first sign that a brand is in trouble is if they just start promoting and selling and cheaping out all the time. So if you buy it at cheap price, nobody will ever want to buy your brand at full price again. And then you become like Pierre Cardin at Winners or TJ Maxx. It becomes a bargain bin brand. It's completely devalued. Your investors are holding you hostage. Number 6, not terribly applicable to a lot of brand DIY companies, but very applicable if you're in tech. If you are out there looking for investment, your investors say, okay, I want quarterly returns. I don't want to invest in this brand because that's just dead money. I don't see the value of that investment. The answer to that is you have to show them that a brand is valuable, that it is a real asset, how much you're going to invest in it, what that will mean for the company, why your margins will be greater, why it's going to be less work to sell each unit because of a strong brand. And finally, you've overcommitted to one course of action. If you focus too much on doing one thing, for example, if you're doing computers while Apple is doing computers and phones and iPads and all that stuff, you are going to start to look a little bit dusty and out of date, especially if what made you great was the thinking inside that computer, not the fact that it's a computer. So you have to pay attention to what made you great in the first place, the core of your brand, and then be willing to diversify a little bit so that people can enjoy that IP in different forms. So there you go. I hope that is helpful. Now, I have extremely exciting news. Go to branddiy.com. The new website is about 20 seconds old, but as far as we know, everything is working. So check out branddiy.com and tell me what you think. I hope you have a terrific Tuesday. I hope this advice has been helpful. Tomorrow we have a Brand DIY book review. Talk to you soon.